Hello and welcome to the COO's Corner podcast, the podcast exploring success factors in the world of business operations. My name is Tamara Nelson, your host and a specialist in the area of operational resilience. And today we are exploring the topic, making your operational ecosystem simpler, faster, and better. Doing things simpler, faster, and better can have enormous benefits to your organizations and your operations, and even as individuals today. To discuss this topic further with us is one known to many as the guy in the blue shirt, Mr. Simpler, Faster, Better himself, Bruce Carnohan.
Hey, good.
How you doing, man? Welcome.
Oh, wonderful. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about what I know is a passion of yours as well from prior discussions. So we could probably talk about this forever. So
we could. And based on our past experiences, yes, that's definitely so. So Bruce, just to give you a little bit of insight about Bruce coaches entrepreneurs, businesses, and high potential leaders to create flawless processes that eliminate massive amount of steps, time, money, frustrated customers and teams. And he does so, and he says forever. So it's gone. Bruce and I met a couple of months back, probably more than a year now, probably close to 2 years, actually. And we literally hit it off, similar background, similar training, similar experience and interest. It's uncanny. And Bruce has a deep passion, and insights in the area of process improvement, not just on the surface. And you'll definitely see this as the episode progresses. So welcome again, Bruce. It's been a while, but it's so good to be talking with you again. And on this podcast, we speak about all things operations and growth at the individual and the personal level. Right. And I know you'll agree with me that operations is the heart of the organization. It's connected to everything. And a vital indicator of organizations' operations today is resilience. And how it's able to meet its obligations for its customers despite the disruptions by being consistent in delivering on-time quality goods and services at a reasonable cost. So to start us off today, Bruce, based on your point of view, why simpler, faster, and better?
That is a great question with a lot of deep roots. So thank you for that. So it's interesting because recently I was back in the United Kingdom where I was born, and I actually did some life walks, as it were. So I actually took myself and my phone with the video, and I actually started to track back way back to when I was a little boy. And I was born into a pretty underprivileged family, but with 4 sisters and a mom and a grandmother, and my father was absent. So we lived in this tiny house, a lot of energy. And as a result, there was always a lot of disruption, right? A lot of variation day to day, hour by hour. And it's funny because I didn't realize that my passion for trying to remove myself from either the disruption or to figure out how to simplify things, because with disruption, there comes complexity very often.
Yes.
And as I said, it wasn't until, I knew there was something deep rooted, but when I did some of the walks that I used to do, starting as a 5-year-old boy and taking myself to my first ever school, I realized that walk was really important for me because it got me out of that disruptive kind of environment. And I was able to control my own pace of doing that, another thing. So the speed and the timing of my own process walking to school. And I just loved actually, it was in nature, lots of birds, lots of plants. Right. So I realized that, my passion for trying to defrag my brain or to get out of discombobulation went all the way back to a 5-year-old boy. And ever since then, So I'm not a multitasker either. I'm a strategic thinker, but I'm a very one track, thought process. So I have to focus. And again, that's part of simpler, faster, better is it's both a step-by-step linear approach, but it's also a strategic mindset as well.
Right.
And the method is homegrown. It's been homegrown over 48 years of doing process improvement stuff. So a lot of stuff between the ears here. But what's really interesting is the method always leads us, particularly in operations, to ask ourselves, can we save some steps or can we save some time, which is the most important non-recyclable entity? Or can we save, money or other resources? Because money is really important to finance an operation, but there are also other resources that are equally as important. So yeah, what I've quickly realized through my methodology is it helps me lead organizations or individuals to really focus on, can I reduce or eliminate massive amounts of wasted steps, time, or money, or other resources? So, there's a lot of jargon out there about process improvement, lots of acronyms, but for me, it's that simple. So
Right. And you would also say, I know you'll agree with me that now more than ever, we need to be looking at ways to make things simpler, faster, better in terms of, getting waste out of our system, being more efficient, and utilizing the resources that we have to the best that we can. And, the phrase simpler, faster, better reminds me of Henry Ford's cheaper, faster, better. Right. And the key behind it all is continual improvement. The question I have for you is there a point where we should no longer invest in being faster and better and simpler? Because
so
I
I'm
know
glad
with Henry Ford back in the day, there was a point where GM came in with innovations and just kind of blew him out of the market, or not a market share loss. So, for companies or persons listening in, COOs, CEOs listening now, is there a point where they should no longer be looking at simpler, faster, better?
Well, the simple answer is no. You should always be continually looking at opportunities to remove wasted steps, time, or money. And the reason for that is that, a couple of things. And I also want to clarify faster, because faster is a misunderstood word and process. And what I did want to point out is, even though I use it as my method, part of the unlearning we have to do is around the whole thinking of faster. Faster means that you actually have to slow down, analyze what's really going on to save steps and time to then be able to go faster later. So there's a lot of terminology around, slow down to go faster. And that is so true. So it's a little bit misunderstood. And the other thing that really drives why you should never give up on looking at simpler, faster, better is our customers, right? Customers are very sophisticated these days. They understand how to get social proof about everything.
Yes, true. Everything is available now.
Right. They also understand that they can research all sorts of different methods and people and resources available very quickly. So that's part of the faster. And then on the other flip side of that is the supply chains that are predominantly run by our suppliers. I mean, talk about being discombobulated. Look at the last 2 years. Our supply chains have got so messed up and so out of balance and so honked up through all of the environmental situational changes that nobody could have really foreseen. And more importantly, no single entity can really control. So the fact that customers are becoming very savvy more and more day by day, easy obtainable research about anything that they want to research about, but on top of that is the last 2 years complexity in what's happened in the supply chain. And so, who would have thought that we would have used technology in the way that we do today? Even like you and I would have had this discussion typically in person in a conference room before, right?
Yes, that's true. Or in a studio somewhere, possibly.
Yeah. So, but here we are, both our own in-home workstations,
Right.
where, I run my workstation simpler, faster, better, and I know you do. So, never ever stop the pursuit of what do your customers want to pay for, and what in the supply chain can you get back in alignment to help your customer get a simpler, faster, better outcome or product or service. So
Yes.
that's
That's
my theory.
that's a good response, Bruce. That alignment is key, from raw material to end product and even beyond, to look at the whole supply chain and ensure that everything is aligned and in sync, because once one thing goes out of alignment, we know how that works, right? But I would also think, and you can agree or disagree with me, that there's also room for innovation in terms of looking at what's happening outside in the marketplace to see and to have that creative process continue. So internally along the supply chain, yes, but also look and see what's happening outside, and possibly even other industries too, to see what could be incorporated in your operations to make it simpler, faster, better. So
yeah. So if I could address that, technology, people get, I think, confused with technology. It's not the be all and end all. It's an enabling tool, right? And again, a lot of people think, oh, well, we'll just change our software and all of our problems will go away. No. If your process is fragile, or if your process is designed to be discombobulated, just putting sophisticated software on top of it actually makes it worse rather than better, because if your process is not producing what the customer needs, with faster, better software, you just produce more of that dissatisfaction faster than you do satisfaction. So a lot of people get confused about when and how to use technology. And so I would caution people to realize that, you have to have a solid, well-defined, repeatable process to begin with. Yes, then look at innovation to enable that fulfillment of that process, either to be simpler or faster or better. And then the other thing I would add to that is that, we hear from people about, well, we have to solve our problems using out-of-the-box solutions. And I will say to people, well, imagine now with today's environment, if there's no box, right? Because what that does, that opens up a whole different level of thinking, not only to benefit the customer, but also to benefit our internal process. And then more importantly, how do we get the supply chain to respond to that so we can ultimately give our customer what we want? So out of the box or no box thinking is a very easy thing to say. It's a very advanced thing to get to, because you literally have to unlearn everything you've learned before to rethink about, okay, what technology enablement tools can I use now to give me a better result for the customer, or solve the problem faster for the customer? Whichever way you want to address that, it's all about solving problems to keep your customers happy so they come back time after time after time. And yeah, the operations is the heartbeat of all of that, right? Without, we can't run too fast if we can't elevate our heartbeat, right? We can't relax and ponder and think about things if we can't reduce our heartbeat. Well, the operations is like that. The heartbeat has to go faster some days, and other days it has to kind of slow down. And even hour by hour, sometimes hour by hour, the operation has to go fast and then slow and slow and then fast. It's pretty dynamic in today's operational world.
Yes, that agility and flexibility is a must.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you spoke earlier about slowing down to grow faster. And I
Mm,
think during the pandemic, this has become real to a lot of us.
yes.
So even me, most recently, getting sick again with COVID and having to
Yeah.
really slow down, it gave you a lot of time to really think and to reflect and to see, where the gaps are
Right.
and how you can improve in terms of your health and organization. And it was very productive in
Yeah.
that slow time. So sometimes we really have to slow down, Bruce. But
Yeah.
tell me
Well,
something. You're gonna say?
I was going to say, number one, you look so good now. So, COVID was obviously had an impact in a different way. So, not that I wish that on anybody, but good
No, no,
recovery.
no.
Good
No, and that's
recovery.
the thing with disruptions, Bruce. We have to try our best to utilize them to see where the opportunities lie. And
Right.
I saw a lot of opportunities where I can improve in how I do things, health wise, relationships,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of even my processes at home and
Right.
how I can improve on those. And those things are have lasting effects and
Yeah.
positive
And
that you can't put a figure on some of these things. It's just amazing.
right. Well, it's also repeatable impacts as well. And actually, tomorrow, if the viewers want to listen in, and particularly yourself, I'm actually doing a little video called Civic Chats. I already recorded it because it was too hot sitting in the car.
Oh yes,
Because I'm
right.
in Arizona and we're averaging triple digits every day heat wise, but I actually talk about the cumulative effect of, if you could save just 1 minute every hour per person. And I actually walk people through the mathematics of that. What people don't realize is if you can save 1 minute in every hour across an average of 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, is that by the end of the year, you've actually accumulated 24 to 36 hours of time saving that you
Wow.
can use on other things. Now, yeah, so you're an individual. Imagine you duplicate that in your family of four, right? Now you've got over 100 hours more available. So just in a family unit, imagine taking that to a couple of 100-person organization,
Mhm.
right? And people don't understand the accumulation of those fractional savings in time that you can never get back, number one. Number two, you can never recycle time because it's gone forever. And
That's
number
right.
three, when you do the math, it starts to add up to staggering amounts of opportunities to really use our time better for our customers, our family, personally, supply. It doesn't matter what you apply it to. It's a universal truth that, time is the only magic commodity that is not recyclable, and we better use it to our fullest advantage. So,
Yes, wise words, Bruce. And one thing I always say to individuals and business owners is, if everyone could find one thing to improve every day,
yep,
the
absolutely.
cumulative effect of that in a year is phenomenal, right? So,
Right.
similar thing, but
Hmm.
the advantages are tremendous. So
Yeah. And
persons
it's
listening in, try it. Even at home, if it's one area you can organize, fix, streamline,
right.
an area of your office or workplace. If everybody does that, taking it, you might even be taking in some of the 5S principles, for example,
Right.
and,
Sure.
and utilize that. It's not just about cleaning up. It's beyond that. It's improving
Mhm.
the entire process with amazing impact on you, the individual, the team, and the customer.
Right. So can I give a actual real live example this week about
Sure.
slowing down and the use of time? So um as you know, I've been doing a lot more video and live streaming in the way
Yes.
that I deliver my message. Well, my poor mini Dell's hard drive was full. Full. I mean full.
Wow.
So the computer guy, Ken Chang, who's has a local workshop, he guided me on what to do with, I have a backup drive and I did some of that. It still wasn't working too good.
Right.
And I just said to him, hey, what would it take to, you know, chip this thing up? And he said, oh, I can get this 1 terabyte unit. It's a new manufacturer. They're really well positioned on cost. And he said,
Right.
bring the unit out in and I'll switch it over and I'll upgrade everything. So I had to slow down on Thursday night. I had to literally disconnect my little mini Dell unit, which is an amazing little unit. I drove there, which is only a couple miles away. And Ken and I invested 1 hour of our time on those improvements and a little bit of money. It wasn't a great deal. So from Thursday night through to this morning, I have already saved about 18 minutes in time that 1 terabyte hard drive has given me in terms of how well the technology enables not only my downloading speeds, but also my processing and uploading speeds, but more importantly, accessing my regularly used documents. I mean, I'm pretty well organized. I can get most of my daily stuff in 3 clicks or less of the mouse.
Right.
But it was delaying, and it was only like seconds between. So there was like a little second delay between each of the 3 clicks. That delay has gone away. So it's unbelievable how much more effective I'm being in 3 days with just a new hard drive on my machine. It's staggeringly different.
So
I
you are
can't believe it.
saving valuable time
Time.
of
Correct.
your life, actually, that can
Well,
be
but
spent doing something else, you know, or more value added, or, you know, I know you have a lot of interests too.
I do,
So
yeah. Well, but more importantly, so I was on a Zoom earlier today with a person in another country, and I did some file sharing, and it's the first time I've done online file. The file sharing thing was just like so much quicker, and it didn't well, you know how it lag times sometimes. There was
yes,
no lag time. I was able to move around my file directory super quick, and then the added advantage is when I sent the files for review, they were gone in like a microsecond. It was like,
lovely, lovely.
it was amazing. It's like, oh my
Thank,
goodness, this is super.
thank you for that share. So yes, so we need to look at those things, those pain points, and
Right.
address them. And the
Yeah.
sooner we do it, we'll be saving valuable time, and that will lead to valuable money, opportunities, you name
Right.
it. You'll never know until you start to improve, right?
Right. Well, the pain point for me was that word frustration. You know, it's one word that means so many different things for everybody. So I was getting frustrated because I don't like waiting. None of us like waiting, right? Just go to the grocery store or go to the gas line, and nobody likes waiting.
No, no one likes that. We know about
But
frustration, especially during this pandemic with computers and the growing pains, and we're still learning. So
yeah,
yes. So
but
Bruce,
more, go
okay, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was going to say, but more importantly, the waiting. So in my case, it was a supplier I was talking to. You know, they didn't get frustrated waiting for me to show, share, and then send them stuff. So that, you know, so I actually did not only myself a favor, but I did them a favor as well, because, you know, there was no lag time. So
Right,
it's a
right.
double whammy, right? Double win.
Yes. So you're
Yeah,
showing honor to those who you serve as well by making your process simpler, faster, better,
that's
honoring
a
their
great way to
time.
put it. Yeah,
Yes,
honor their resource and time and their individualness towards not getting them frustrated. Yeah, I've never thought of it that way. That is a great, I think I'm going to use that, if I
yeah, man.
may.
Absolutely.
All right,
So
awesome.
Bruce, as you work with organizations and individuals, I know you'll be observing and seeing trends and similarities. What is the number one mistake being made today within organization and as it relates to process improvement?
Ooh, that is a amazing, deep question.
Give us
So
the Cliff Notes version.
yeah, that's a Tamara whammy, that one. Good job. And I'm sure you've asked your customers that a few times, so that's why you're pretty good at asking that question. So, well, let me narrow it down a little bit. If you like, my gifts and where I'm best is when I help companies that assemble things
Mhm.
or disassemble things. So, or distribution. So distribution, even though it's called distribution, is really a disassembly process. So if you think about, think about a really big box retail giant, they import containers full of things that have pallets full of things, that have boxes full of things, and then eventually they get broken down into an individual package, which is typically what we would buy as a consumer. We're not typically buying a pallet of microphones, right? Or
Right.
whatever it might be. So distribution is really disassembly. So it's something that's really big and it gets disassembled to. So assembly is where you take a lot of small components or information or service from the supply chain, and you take and you build them up into a product that is a usable product or service, or it could even be an information, like book assembly is assembling, information, and then it provides a service of learning. So where I'm really good and where most of my experience is in the assembly of things. The greatest misunderstanding I still see today, even with the enablement and the use of technology, is that when the process stops, even if it stops for a short time, or if the process has to wait for something, people kind of accept that as, well, that's the normal process, that's the way it's always been, that's the way it needs to be. Well, I challenge them to say, no, actually a absolutely perfectly aligned, simpler, faster, better process, everything will be continually moving all of the time, every single step in the operation. And so if you don't see that continual motion and movement, that's where the opportunity for improvement is. And so when I love to walk businesses or offices, so when I'm walking, I'm looking for, is there dust on products and information? Are the boxes, all not in order? Is there a big pile of paperwork or product or stuff piled up somewhere? So I'm looking for, where is the process either slowing down or stopping? Because what I find, that is a great visual indicator. That's where your opportunity for improvement is. And
that's a great tip. And you actually answered my next question too, right? So, because I know that you are the discombobulator.
Or undiscombobulator.
Yes, that's right.
Right. Well, no, I discombobulate as well. I still confuse my own processes. So, hey, I'm human. I still confuse myself and my own processes and the people I work with. So, not perfect yet.
Yes. And, in one organization, I was known as the bottleneck finder or eliminator.
Right.
So
Yeah.
similar things. And what the question I had in mind to ask you, what were some of the principles that to really use? And you mentioned going and actually observing and seeing where the process slows down. Going to Gemba, as they call it in Japan, is a great source. And of course, utilizing the teams that are there, the people that are there. They know where the improvement lies. They
Sure.
do.
Well, my greatest suggestion, and I used to do this when I was in the turnaround world, is the greatest resource that I see overlooked are the people that handle the trash, the waste, the cleaning up. And they're typically contractors, right? They may not be part of the organization as such. So one of my little tricks is I always go talk to the people that are moving the waste, handling the trash, cleaning up the restrooms, because they actually know where the source of all that waste is coming from,
Oh yeah.
because they handle it all the time.
Oh yeah.
And 80% of the time, they also know how to fix it.
Yes. And
And
they
people
are
don't ask them.
and they are 99% of the time frustrated.
Right, absolutely, because it's like,
So they're
oh, you know, like I only went by this machine an hour ago and now the trash can's already full,
yes, yes.
or I can't believe it. You know, I just finished cleaning my work center and I went away and somebody else came to use my work center and look, they've trashed it, or they've made it all untidy and messy.
Or all that part need is a washer. And
Yeah.
you know, that problem is fixed, and then I wouldn't have to work on that. I could go and do something else. So
Right.
yes, there are valuable insights that we can learn, ladies and gentlemen, from observation
Right.
and actually speaking to the people on the
Sure.
floor at Genbach.
And if you want a even more powerful trick, if you don't believe how powerful that is, and I only had to do this once, is that I got all of the people that were taking the trash away from the machines every hour. And instead of taking the trash away, we actually put it into a very large box where the people use the time clocking machine to leave the building at the end of their shift. And in one day, we made enough trash that they could not get through the door to leave the company.
Wow.
Wow, right, wow. So that's how bad the waste trash problem was. And nobody could see it because it disappeared.
It disappeared. And if it's not
right?
there, if you can't see it, it's not a problem, right?
If you can't see it, you can't feel it. If you can't feel it, it's not a problem. So the key thing there is everyone said, well, how are we going to get out of the door? They couldn't clock out. And I said to them, guys, gals, it's very simple. The way you get out of the door is you have to figure out how to not make this
It's
amount
not-
of waste every
yeah.
day.
Right, right. So
And we,
Bruce, a lot of the illustrations we have been using have been, you know, more manufacturing type. And I
yes,
know you are the author of a very awesome book. I want you to share with our listeners, are these principles the same for service organizations?
actually, they're even more powerful for service organizations, because a lot of the missing and unseen wasteful activities in a service organization is often the way that documents, paperwork, and queuing for things like signatures, approvals, are totally overlooked. So my best ever example is I worked for a state agency that was handling the grants for parents to get childcare provision given to them. And when I first started working with them, it was an office of 22 people. And they were processing grants for the entire state for underprivileged parents to get childcare support. And the average grant was taking 62 working days from the time of the application to either approval or disapproval. After we had done all of the work and all of the learning around time and movement and information bottlenecks and, you know, misalignment, waiting for signature, there were all sorts of different things we addressed. We got that grant process down to 9.8 days.
Wow.
So we took away 52 days from that process. But more importantly, we took away all the dissatisfaction from the parents that were frustrated because they needed the child care support grant money and they weren't getting it. So, you know, if you're a parent, I know you're a parent. Imagine you applied for a grant for something to help your family today. You would not get an answer until this time in August.
Yeah, that's a pretty long time.
Pretty long time. But they thought that was normal. They said, well, that's the way it's always been here. It's like, well, then we're gonna, and actually that team was the first team that I actually got to understand, well, what if there's no box thinking? You know, if you were starting over and if you were the parent seeking to get the money for your child for the child care provision, how would the process look like for you? And they started talking, and after they talked, and we threw a lot of ideas on the wall. And I said to him, well, why don't we make it that way then? And he said, well, you're crazy. We can't do it that way. And said, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Yes, why not, ladies and gentlemen? So let's
Why not?
do this. Let's try it. Let's make things better. And
Correct.
so Bruce, what advice would you give to a COO or a C-suite, or anyone listening in, for that matter, wanting to make their processes simpler, faster, better, who may be frustrated, overwhelmed? Tell them where's a good
Right.
place that they can start.
Okay. Well, number one is it comes down to commitment. Commitment first, a belief that your people and teams and resources actually will do the absolute best job for you if you do decide to change something. And then be a provocateur of change. Instead of fearing change, try to be a facilitator, an enabler, a resource maker to be able to get things to change. And then the last thing is, if somebody comes up, like in my case, with a crazy idea of how the process should be, support them all the way through the testing and evaluation processes, even if it's completely against your personal beliefs or your personal knowledge of how it's worked best before. So standing aside your pride,
Yes.
standing aside your need for control, those are the hardest things for, because C-level thinkers are complex thinkers. And having to set those two things aside as a complex thinker is the most difficult thing they have to do. But if you support the team, if you believe in the team, you hired them, right? If you didn't hire them to stay there, well, that's anti-belief, right? So believe in the team, give them the resources, get out of your own way and let them take over how the process should be, and then support them. That doesn't mean to say you can't question logic or rationale, but you got to support them 110%, no matter what, no matter how crazy it looks, no matter how different or difficult it becomes, you have to support them with your
because you might just be surprised. Pleasantly surprised.
Actually, you will be amazed at how people will knock your socks off if you have the right people with the right enablement tools and let them free to go to work on the process.
That has been my experience as well, Bruce. Definitely. So you'll be pleasantly surprised with what the team will come up with. That far exceeds what you would think. Of course, you can add insights and some valuable guidance, but empowering the team, that trust factor is huge. And once their confidence is there and they have the tools at their fingertips to get the job done, you'll be amazed at the improvements that can happen within your team and organization.
And I'm not advocating they give up guidance, or I'm not advocating they give up span of control. It's nothing to do with it. I'm advocating being more open-minded with facilitation and enabling them, and just go take a walk around the company building and let the team go to work.
Yeah.
Breathe a little, let them go.
Yes. So what's one common myth about process improvement that you would like to quickly debunk for our listeners?
It's too hard to do. That's it's too much. We don't have time to work on making it better. We don't have time to do it right. We don't have time to sit back and evaluate. We don't have time to measure. So it becomes a fallacy around being too difficult to do. And again, that's why I decided to get rid of all the, you and I are well trained in all the continuous improvement, Japanese process improvement tools, but they're filled with crazy acronyms. So that's why I decided to get rid of all those and just say, my method is about simpler, faster, better.
Yes.
And focus on where the waste in steps, time and money is coming from. If you do those sets of three things, it's amazing how undifficult it can be.
Yeah, yeah. And that's key. That's key when you have mastered your craft, Bruce. You make the complex simple, right?
Complex has to be so simple that, you know, 6th to 8th grader can understand it. Absolutely.
When they can understand it, you know that you've got it, right?
Actually, you know, you've reached the epitome of simpler, faster, better. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Right. I would just add that, you know, for persons listening in, you know, yes, it may look like a mountain, but as was said earlier by Bruce, you have to slow down to go faster. And, you
Right.
know, these fixes, you know, don't just look at the surface and put a band-aid on things. We
Right.
know what to do, just do it, and
Yeah.
be very deliberate and strategic about how we do it. And that whole notion of find the problem now and fix it later does not work. It
Yeah.
becomes
Cure the sick tree at the roots, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Not just at the leaf level, not spray the leaves and hope they get better, you know?
No, I make her just make it shiny and buff it and say,
Right.
it's good. No. We need to go
Yeah.
to the root of the problem. And at the end of the day, every business want results.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about results. It's still
Yeah,
not hiding that fact. But yeah, it's not as difficult. And actually, the other thing about making it difficult is deciding to start. So if you don't start, you will never start. If you believe that change comes about naturally, that's not true. No change equals no change. So you have to start, and you have to be willing to change what I call something on the product. If you want a different productive output, whether it doesn't matter, it's information, service, or product for your customer, you have to go address the productive inputs that are going
Right.
into the process, not the process itself. You gotta go attach and attract and work on the root of the problem, which is the productive input. So a good tree, healthy tree stands up and is healthy with good roots, and you keep watering it. So
Yes,
right,
absolutely.
yeah,
Right. So in terms of resources,
yes.
where can persons find the best resources that can help them in their improvement journey?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. My website is very simple. It's processcleanup.com, or one word. They can go there to start. When this comes out, I'll be more than happy. I've just created a new online course, which is a 6-module self-paced learning, which is actually supported by the textbook that was actually written from real life 5 years worth of successful result-oriented projects in the service industry. So the course is based upon that very strong textbook, which is lifelong learning in the textbook. And then
Could you share the name of that textbook for us?
yeah, make sure I quote it right. It's on Amazon, and it's improving performance in service organizations, with a tagline of how to implement a lean transformation. Yeah, I said I wouldn't use jargon, but my co-authors wanted to use lean in this, but it was before simpler, faster, better really had a life of its own. So yeah, improving performance in service organizations, how to implement a lean transformation. It's a nice, of course, it's got a blue cover.
Yes.
You can't see it quite right, but anyway. And it's actually available as a rentable as well if you don't want to buy it, which is perfectly fine.
I
And
have
then
my e-copy of the
you
book.
do, I know
Yes.
you do.
Right. So
And
thank
then
you.
the final resource I have is, I just made it for fun. It's actually what I call a Fix-It journal. Again, it's available through Kindle Direct Publishing. Yeah, I can't get that. And this is actually, huh?
I didn't know about that one. That one missed.
Oh, okay. Well, I can drop the link. It's actually the top 26 simple improvements to put in place. So you have, it's an annual journal. You can put you get 2 weeks to put the improvement in place. You can start anywhere in the journal because it's not dated. And there's also a suggested weekly personal reward for either yourself or the team to reward yourself for the good efforts. And it's nicely laid out with bullet points and, you know, all sorts of things.
I'm
So
not seeing it clearly because
I know the Zoom camera don't want to Anyway, I
Yeah.
can, when you publish, or I can send you the links on
So
email.
we'll have all of that, ladies and gentlemen, in the resource section of the about this podcast episode. So we'll have
Awesome.
everything there for you to click on and get your improvements going. So Bruce,
Yeah.
we are coming to the end of our interview.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you to step into my shoes for a bit. Is there one question that I should have asked that I didn't?
Oh, maybe what my pet peeve is.
Well, let's hear it.
As a process guy.
Let's hear it.
So my pet peeve is being in waiting lines. And and there's all sorts of reasons, particularly, you know, through the supply chain discombobulation that's occurred now, and, you know, mass exodus from the traditional workforce. I know all the reasons why, but being in waiting lines, if there has to be a waiting line, at least have the organization recognize there's a waiting line and make it a pleasurable experience instead of a not so good experience, right?
Yes.
So if you have to wait, then provide, you know, maybe some education that you can look at in the waiting line. Maybe provide some edutainment, as it's called, you know, a little bit of entertainment to stop you from getting frustrated about having to wait.
Yes.
Maybe provide some enablement tools like, you know, really fast free Wi-Fi, so that you can, if you're waiting in line and you're a busy professional or busy home mom or whatever, you can still do things on your technology device so that you get things done. Yeah. So I would say completely transforming the process around waiting to make it a customer enjoyable experience instead of really a pain. It's a pain for me. I hate waiting.
Something tells me that it's a pain for any person in process improvement. I can attest to that. I'm guilty of that too. And I try to fix the process while I'm in the line and say, you know, if they move this around and, you know, this doesn't have to be that way. And just by adding one more person to the, you know, it will shorten the queue significantly. Or if they have to split the queue into these areas, I'll sit in the line and work it out. And you know, you see these things because you're trained, so it's just there, and you know it's not necessary for it to be there, that there is a way to be simpler, faster, and better, right?
Yeah, well, it's also the environment as well, because people set up waiting lines and they're usually, you know, dark and dirty, and you know, they're always not so pleasant, or you have to go to another place to wait, you know. I mean, doctors are classic for that, you know, the operation, you know, the place the doctor works from is immaculate, nice and bright, clean, and very often they'll put you in this waiting room that's dark and smells bad. And I mean, it's like, duh. And it's like, you know, you're forcing me to wait, and now you're making my frustration even more painful because, you know, the room is awful. So
we hear you. So if you're listening in, doctors or service organizations, here are some, you know, valuable tips for you so that you can help improve your customer experience. And now, Bruce, I'm not going to let you slip without me asking the question I ask every guest, because I do believe there is power in asking questions. You know, by simply asking a question, we can open up the possibility of having, you know, dozens of different answers and ways to solve problems. So in your career, what is one question that you frequently ask when working with teams to get the best outcomes? You smile. Oh, that smile is just like $1 million. I see. Bruce just lit up, ladies and gentlemen. If you are not watching on YouTube and you're listening in, it's just phenomenal to see that smile. We want to hear it, Bruce. Let's hear it.
So actually, it's interesting. I actually call it my $1 million question, and it can't be asked too early. And usually it's asked when the team either are frustrated or they feel they're going backwards or they're stuck. And my question to them is, okay, everybody, let's just sit down a minute. Let's look at what we got on the walls or in our workbooks or whatever. And the question is, what's holding you back at an individual level or as a team to become a high-performing team? What's holding us back as a team? And be quiet. Don't offer any guidance, or even if they don't respond for a while. So if they don't respond, reposition the question. What's holding you back? Or what's holding us back as a high-performing team? And wait and listen.
Wow. I can just hear all of the bombs, all of the truth coming out, all the improvement initiatives by just that one question. Oh, love it.
Well, what it does is it unplugs the frustration.
Yeah.
That question will drive to the pain point of every individual's frustration about why they don't see improvements happening or working, or we're doing all this work and we're going backwards, or we're doing all this work and it's getting worse. I mean, all those things will come out and then when they give an answer, instead of saying anything non-specific, say, well, how do you feel about that?
Lovely.
Because if you can get the what's holding you back, get that all thrown out on the table or on the wall. Yeah. And then if the second question is, how do you all feel about that? Right? And then you'll get all the emotional piece. And then the third question is, okay, what do we need to do to get rid of this bottleneck, as you call it? You were called the bottleneck queen. So, the bottleneck is usually in here.
We know this. It starts
Yes,
in the mind. And we have to unclog or detox that mind to see and take off those, blinkers that are on the eyes for us to really see with fresh perspectives what is possible. We can be simpler, faster, and better.
Well, I call that defragging your brain. So it's like, back to my computer example, I'd done all I could with the current drive, but as soon as I got the terabyte drive in there, man, does it defrag quickly.
Fresh perspective. Bruce, it's always great talking to you. And let me tell you, we can talk for more. And I know we could talk for hours and days. But thank you for so much for sharing with us today. A wealth of information.
Okay, thank you.
To you, our listeners, we want to thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. So you can jump onto the waiting list and get a free time waster to time saver assessment form.
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
At processcleanup.com, signature-series, and the info will be in the resource section of this podcast as well. Great. So hope you all challenge the status quo with this information and do things differently. We want to hear all about your simpler, faster, and better initiatives. And you can reach out to me at tamarnelson.com, at tamar@tamarnelson.com, or on LinkedIn at tamar-nelson. And you know where to find Bruce at processcleanup.com. And you can also find him on LinkedIn, and the information will also be in the resources. Please share and subscribe if you found this information valuable. And you can also leave us a rating on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. Please join us again next time for another information-filled episode. And as we say in Jamaica, continue to walk good.
Walk good.
Yes, walk good.